I finally managed to AFK this raid farm for a really decent amount of time. I want to thank Lucas B, who pointed out in the comments that you can actually eat while using this raid farm if you are sneaking, or if you go into the accessibility settings and you set sneak to toggle, that'll set you so you're permanently sneaking, and then you can eat whenever you want, and that helped a great deal. However, I still died. I'm not sure exactly what happened there. I was killed by an evoker, which normally the Vindicators get used, so that one was a little bit strange. I'm not sure exactly how I died, but I was able to AFK for 2 solid days. About 48 hours of AFKing at this farm. Got a lot of materials for that AFK session. Of course, the important resource, to me at least, is the redstone dust here. Hey, look at all this. 2 double chests, plus a row, plus a little bit more. When you conclude all the hoppers here, that is over 14 shulker boxes of redstone blocks. That will go a long way to a lot of redstone contraptions. That should actually hold me over for quite a while. And then we've got a similar amount of gunpowder and glowstone. And I actually turned off the sticks, so there's no more new sticks coming in. But the bottles, that'll actually be pretty helpful. I would like to actually improve that honey farm at some point in the near future. I will probably need about twice as many bottles, so I might have to do another AFK session at some point. I wouldn't mind having the redstone either, but these bottles would definitely be very, very helpful. And then the emeralds, we actually have to come down here because it's got its own storage with a whole bunch of lights. That is, there is a comparator missing behind this one. I need to go up and fix that, but I forgot to put a comparator when I change these lights over. There it is, 10 lights there. So that is 20 double chests filled with shulker boxes, filled with emeralds. And now we have this fancy crafting system that Asta designed that we built in my last episode, and that'll help me craft that down into blocks of emerald quite a bit easier than we had before. So that should be pretty nice as well. On the subject of that automatic crafting system that Asta created, I have come out to our slime farm, where we have tons and tons of slime balls that have not yet been turned into slime blocks. All those lights right there. That's even more than we have emeralds, and I'd like to get even more. I'd like to get 2 million slime blocks if we can. I don't know if I'll be able to AFK for it in this episode. It might take a few days to AFK it, but I'd like to get that goal, and then we'll probably never be back here. But this area is ripe. We got plenty of room to set up his crafter here, and we have lots of objects that need to be crafted into another object. So I would like to build that right here, and it's actually fast enough. You can craft down 576,000 items per hour. This farm creates about 500,000 per hour, so we can actually set that up as the AFK spot. So you'll actually AFK craft so that all of the slime balls are slime blocks by the time you're done AFKing, and it'll actually catch up on some of this backflow while we're waiting. So yeah, let's set that up. That should be nice. This thing is an absolute monstrosity. It kind of ruins the aesthetic here. It doesn't really match everything else that's going on. I wonder if I should have built it out of like gray concrete and gray glass, but it's too late for that now. And if I were more worried about it, I'd just put a building around it. But again, the idea here is to get a bunch of slime blocks and then probably never come back. I want to get enough slime blocks to last basically the lifetime of the server, and then just never worry about it again. So it does kind of look awesome at the same time. It's just kind of got a very industrial vibe to it. It's very cool. I had some chests that were right here. This was where I was putting the output, but I decided it made more sense. I've got them all the way over here at the portal. That makes them easier to throw through the portal. So we can just chuck them all through the portal, collect them over on the other side, and then when we get the full amount, which we need, about 24 double chests is the full amount, I'm going to use like some sort of flying machine to get them all back to spawn at the same time. And so far we've got 12 double chests. I actually ended up spending an overnight here. So I've got all the lights are out, as well as everything that spawned while I was crafting. We kept all up with all of that, and we've got 12 double chests. So we're about halfway there, but it's gonna take a little while longer. I think we get somewhere between like 4 and 5 double chests per 8 hours. And it's hard to AFK during the day because it actually requires my mouse button be held down. So I can only really AFK at night. So I don't know if we'll actually get there this episode. I would actually like to set up that flying machine and get everything back to spawn in this episode, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to have that happen. But this all seems to be working great. I'm really happy with this, and this has saved me a lot of hassle of having to craft all those slime blocks manually. I forgot to mention, by the way, one of the unforeseen consequences of building this in an ocean biome is we get squid inside our water elevators. They actually spawn right inside of there. Sometimes they die, and I actually had to set up a filter to get the ink sacs out of that water line so that they don't end up in our empty shulker box line and cause problems. It's just not something you would expect. And then you have to deal with it, and it's just kind of one of those funny things. I've been working on a new farm design for the past several days. Aston and I were able to get a proof of concept working for this farm in a very short amount of time, but as I'm getting into the details and trying to get everything finalized, it's taking longer than expected. I was hoping to build that farm in this episode, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen anymore. I'm hoping still that I can get it done for the next episode. It's possible that won't happen. We'll see how it goes. I really want to work on this farm. I'm really excited about it. It's going to be a very cool farm. I just want it to work properly, and I want to take my time and get everything working right. So instead, I'm going to have to work on something else in this episode, and then I'll come back around to that farm at a later date. So I'm going to do what I was planning on doing in my last episode, but I ended up running out of time. I'm at this Nether tree farm that I set up a couple episodes ago, and I want to do some improvements here. So I'm going to start with the item output. The item output is way down here, and it's at multiple levels. So this is the side where we've got the crimson stems. Over there are the warp stems. We got bone meal over there. We got items over there. We got items over there. And we got items coming from the fungus farm. So I want to route all these into a water stream and then send them up to this main platform up here. And then I want to set up a shulker box sorter. I think right here would be a good spot for it. So that basically we just send the shulker boxes up into the shulker box sorter, and then we have a nice clean output right here on this platform. So let me set that up. Since we already had Carpet Mod installed, we recently decided to enable the flipping cactus feature, which is a very cool feature that allows you to flip certain objects, and it makes placement of certain things like upside down pistons a lot easier. It's a very nice quality of life feature that fills a gap in something that we should be able to do in vanilla Minecraft, but for some reason we still can't. And so we decided this was a nice feature to have. It helps a lot with machines like this and flying machines and stuff like that. And it's very nice. It actually doesn't do observer updates when you flip an observer. So if that were a flying machine, it would actually send the flying machine off if you rotated an observer like that, and it actually did a block update. So there we go. That's a normal block update. It doesn't do that when you flip the observer. Very cool feature. We actually added this because we've got a build coming up that has a lot of glazed terracotta, and it's very difficult to actually get the placement of that right in vanilla, and flipping cactus actually works with glazed terracotta as well. But we do a lot of redstone. There are a lot of redstone builds that can be very tough to build naturally, and being able to flip the objects like that, you may have noticed in the video there are a few times that I used it. It's a very nice feature. I recommend checking it out. If you're using Carpet Mod in your world, it is a very nice quality of life feature. Well, it didn't end up fitting on the side that I wanted to put it on, but it ended up fitting perfectly on this side right here. It is exactly the same width as this platform here, so that worked out perfectly. This is an imposing shulker box sorter here. This is Palo Palace shulker box sorter. I've used it before in our Obsidian Bank. The chest storage is a little bit overbuilt, but I needed it in order to have enough storage for all the stems here. So each of these two rows right here are for my warp stems, and these two rows right here are for my crimson stems. So we've got about 10 double chests of storage. It's enough for about 8 hours of AFK with each of these two types of logs here. And then the rest of it, I just wanted it to be the same size. So they've got 6 chests of storage for all these, which will probably never get used up. But I've got all the sorters all set up. I need to get some item frames, put some item frames down here, but my last sleep location is back at the slime farm, and I'd like to keep it there, and I don't want to have to fly back just to get some item frames. So I'll come back and put some item frames up here at some point in the near future, and I won't worry about that too much. But I've got, you can see the water line that runs all the way underneath it, so it comes even from the fungus farm. All those extra items are sent over, goes through this whole system over here. We've got water lines running under all of this here, and then they come over here. So anytime there is a shulker box that gets filled up, it gets sent in the water line, sent up there, and then sorted into the shulker box sorter. And there's even a chest over here that if I need to put items back in, it'll just dispense it into the water, send it back up through the system right there. So that's all working great. The next thing I want to do is, I mentioned when I built this, is that you've got this fungus spitter right here, and sometimes it's supposed to give you a little bit extra than you need so you never run out, but you always end up with some in your hand after you're done. I need to figure out a way to get that back up there so that I'm not wasting any of it. And then down here, we've got these bone meal shulker box unloaders, and the empty chests come into those barrels back there. And there's no way to actually get at those. So I need to put a hopper line underneath all that, and then I'd like to actually send them back up to this crafting system over here. The crafter is for the bone meal, so basically on this side we've got our actual bone meal blocks, and on this side we have the empty shulker boxes that you put bone meal into. So I want to bring all those empty shulker boxes back up and load up this chest right here so that they're available for the next time I want to craft bone meal. So that should help out quite a bit. So that was easy enough. For the fungus, we've got an item elevator here. I've got a chest that I can put them back into, and they get spat out of a dropper back here and into the water, and then they go up into there, and there's a barrel up there and a hopper that points directly into the shulker box itself. So as the items drain out of the shulker box, those fungus will just replace them, and that seems to be working pretty well. And then over here, I've added quite a few water channels to this build here, and I've added 2 more here, one coming from the other side and one coming from right here. These are for the empty shulker boxes from the bone meal shulker unloaders, and they go into this water channel here and up into the crafter, like I said. And man, I'm starting to really regret the use of black glass on this. It looks great, but man, when you're building it over the void, I've had to leave sea lanterns on it a few times just so that I can see it again. If you come up for supplies and you have to go back down and try to find the black glass over the void, very, very hard to see, but it does look really cool. I can't hate it for that, but it is pretty hard to build with. So just 2 more things that I want to do here. One has to do with this nylium right here. So every once in a while, when you've got stems on top of it, this will convert back into netherrack. And we've got a dispenser right here that'll bone meal it and turn it back into the nylium. However, in Collier, the person who created this farm here, pointed out that if it gets converted back into nylium and then right back into netherrack in the same tick, which is rare, but it does happen from time to time, there's an observer underneath that detects the change in state. It will not double detect the 2 changes in state, and that'll actually freeze up the machine, and it will never convert it back into the nylium, and that's very bad. That'll actually end an AFK session. Like I said, it is rare, but if you're doing a longer AFK session, it becomes almost certain at some point in time. So he had a recommendation of how he wants to fix it, and I'd like to implement that over there. And then the other thing I'd like to do is this fungus farm turns on whenever there isn't enough fungus in the loader over here, but it might stay on if I left the area. So what I want to do is I want to set up an AND gate so that this switch has to be on as well as this being low And that should be a fairly easy circuit. I just need to make sure so that if I turn this off, that'll actually stop that flying machine over there. We don't want to leave flying machines running when we leave the area. That could cause problems. So it'll only run that fungus machine while this switch is actually on, while the farm's actually running, and that should prevent that from becoming a problem. So here's what Nicole here suggested to me. I've got an observer here, and it's observing the logs as they're streaming by, and it's attached to a fader circuit here. As long as there are logs actively streaming by, this fader circuit will stay on, and this torch here will stay off. And as soon as the logs stop streaming by, then the fader circuit will die out very, very quickly. This torch will come back on, it will extend this piston here, and it will send a signal through an observer chain up here into this dispenser. The dispenser will turn the netherrack back into nylium. It does mean that when I'm done using the farm, it will waste one bone meal to bone meal the nylium, and it'll plant roots on the nylium or something like that. It's not really much of a problem. This is a much more foolproof solution than what I had before, so that should make sure that I don't end up having a bad AFK because the nylium got turned into netherrack and it just stopped the AFK session. It was, however, very difficult to get this to fit in with everything else we've got here. We've got a lot of dropper towers that are getting bone meal up to the dispensers up here, and this is like all actively firing redstone that's like constantly going. Droppers are solid blocks, so they tend to send signals through them as well, so I had to do a lot to not interfere with the redstone that was there. And it's kind of some wonky redstone that we ended up with here, but it does work, and that does seem to solve the problem. As far as the AND gate goes, that ended up being super duper easy because we've already got a redstone line right here and it's already inverted. So if the redstone here is on, that farm is off. So I've got the switch right there, powers this redstone line down here. And so I just send a signal up some torch towers. And basically, if this is off, then that torch right underneath that gray block is on, so it will power that. So even if this is low, then the power from that will turn that line on, and that will make sure that the farm stays off. So that ended up being super easy. So I know some people expressed some interest in this farm when I first built it the first time around. I still will say that it is not for the faint of heart. And I have definitely made it more difficult. It's more expensive, and there's quite a bit more that needs to be built. But I think there's some really good features that I've added to this farm here. So if you're interested, I will put a schematic, an updated schematic of this farm down in the description. I've been using this farm quite a bit, by the way. I actually have 2 double chests filled with shulker boxes of each of the 2 types of logs. I've been using the crimson logs. That's my primary way of making chests these days. It's fantastic to have that much wood available for making chests. This is a very cool farm. But that's all I have time for today. I'm sorry for the slightly shorter episode, but again, I was working on a farm. I'm still working on a farm, and I wasn't able to include it in this episode, unfortunately, and I spent a lot of time on that farm, and it should pay off very soon in the near future. I still think we got a lot of cool things done in this episode, so I want to thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope to see you again real soon. Bye now!